Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Today is our last day of polynomials. We're putting it all together, and we're finally going to be done with this unit. We did the first part, which was all the operations: add, subtract, multiply, kind of classify, talked about degree, all of that. And then we looked at factoring. And today we're going to put that together briefly, a little bit of review, and then I'll give you lots of time to work on the review package. And we have our summative assignment tomorrow, which is basically a unit exam, but it's not really a unit exam. So it's a Google form. It'll be 20 questions, and you'll have to do that tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, we start up on our next unit. So with that said, let's jump into some review. Alrighty, so we're going to jump into a very short review lesson today. This is the review package that I posted on Friday, so maybe you had a chance to work through a little bit of it. I'm just going to go through and do kind of, one of each type of question and make sure we know what you're doing, and then I'll leave the rest for you to do on your own. So you can just copy this down on loose leaf, right? You don't need to have a printer. I don't know if it's worth even wasting the paper if you do have a printer. Just get some loose leaf and copy down the questions. They're all really short, and you can write them down and have all the space you want. So here we go. Polynomials review. This goes all the way back to when we first started this, right? We've been doing polynomials since we went online. This is probably the biggest unit of the whole year. It says classify the following. So when I say classify, what that meant was name, right? That it has two terms, and I know a two-term could be called a binomial. Maybe three terms is a trinomial. If it's just a one term, it's a monomial. And then anything bigger than that, we just call it a polynomial. And the degree, the degree is the highest exponents within the term. So this, the exponent is 2. This, I have exponent of 3. The highest would be 3. Okay, maybe I'll just do the bottom one just to talk about the degree. That is a trinomial. And then what I have to remember is term by term, I can combine the exponents. So the first term, 2 and 1, that thing has a degree of 3. The second term, 1 and 2, that would have a degree of 3. And the third term, 1 and 3, that has a degree of 4. So the degree of the whole thing is 4, the highest degreed term. So maybe just a bit trickier. So that's classifying and degree and kind of talking about polynomials. Okay. Next, evaluate. This is something we did kind of at the, maybe the halfway mark. It says evaluate the following for x equals -3. Well, what that means is I have this expression and I have x's. And what it says is, well, what if you actually knew the value of x? Plug it in and see what you get. Okay, well, -3 squared. Notice how I plug it in with brackets. 8x, well, that's 8 times -3, plus 15. And then at this point, it's just a bedmass question, right? I would start brackets. There's nothing I can simplify. Exponents. -3 squared is 9. Okay. Minus 8 times -3 plus 15. Well, I did brackets. I did exponents. Now division, multiplication. Oh, yeah, I do have multiplication. Okay, notice it's a -8 times -3. Well, negative times a negative. That would be plus 24 plus 15. And now I can add all of that together. 9 plus 24 plus 15 is 48. And there's my answer. Okay, so evaluate just means, well, plug in the value they give you. That's all I have to do. Alrighty. And then we got into some of the operations, like we learned how to add and subtract. Really, I guess we reminded ourselves how to add and subtract because we did that in grade 9, did some multiplication, and really built on that. So I'll do a few of these. Okay, it says remember to do the distributive property first. Absolutely. So let's do this one. 2 times 3x squared minus 2 plus 5x squared minus 2x plus 3. Okay, so I've got this chunk added to this chunk, or this polynomial plus this polynomial. Well, the first thing I need to do is the distributive property. Let's get rid of these brackets. Okay, I'd get 6x squared minus 4. And then I have plus 5x squared minus 2x plus 3. There's nothing really in front of that one. Great, well, I did the distributive property. Now I have a polynomial times a polynomial. This times this. Okay, Well, the next thing I do is actually add these. And I remember with addition, you really just drop the brackets. There's nothing else there. 6x squared minus 4 plus 5x squared minus 2x plus 3. There's nothing to change those signs. There's no new information. Okay, I'll move my work over here. Next thing would be to gather like terms. So the 6x squared and the plus 5x squared could go together. The minus 2x is the only x term, so it stays on its own. And then the constants, minus 4 plus 3. So I've got three terms. I've got the x squareds, the x, and the constants. And I can combine them together. If you have 6 of something plus 5 more, you have 11 x squared, minus 2x, and minus 1. Okay, one of the biggest things is remembering an x squared and an x are not the same thing, right? X squared is specifically different than an x, just x on its own. Okay, so that's kind of a little multiplication and a little bit of addition as well. Okay, so lots of these for you to try, just working on your operations. And then let's go to this one. Okay, negative 3 times 3x squared minus 4x plus 3, subtract x squared plus 3x minus 5. Well, it actually starts very similar. I have a multiplication to do, so I need to do the distributive property. And then I'm going to have this polynomial minus this polynomial. Okay, well, I get negative 9x squared plus 12x. Negative times negative is a positive. Minus 9. That is subtracted by x squared plus 3x minus 5. And here's where subtraction is just a little bit different. I have to remember with subtraction, it's like I am distributing that negative. Subtracting the x squared, subtracting the 3x, and subtracting the negative 5. If you're subtracting a whole polynomial, I distribute that negative. The first bracket, there's nothing out front, so nothing really changes. Minus x squared, minus 3x, and then minus negative 5, well, subtract a negative, that'll just be addition. Okay, gather my like terms now. Minus 9x squared minus an x squared, great. Now your x's plus 12x minus 3x, great. And constants, minus 9 plus 5. And I can combine those for my final answer. Negative 10x squared plus 9x minus 4. Fantastic. So again, a little bit of multiplication and now even a little bit of subtraction. So there you go. Okay, let's move on to another one. What are we looking at? Oh, okay. A little bit of FOIL. Okay, a binomial times a binomial. This is where we had to remember repeated distribution. Okay, where I had to say, well, I'm going to distribute that 2x, or I'm going to multiply the first and the outer, and I get 2x squared minus 8x. And then I also have to distribute this negative 3. So I get a minus 3x and a plus 12. And then I combine my like terms, which are already grouped in the middle. 2x squared minus 11x plus 12. So there you go. That was a step up. That was new at the 10 level. But we multiply binomials all the time now, and we're really, really comfortable with it. Okay. Next one is also a binomial times a binomial. It just looks a little bit weird. X minus 6 squared. What I have to remember is something squared means that thing times itself. So a binomial squared, or x minus 6 squared, that's x minus 6 times x minus 6. And then from there, I can just do FOIL, or I can do repeated distribution. X squared minus 6x minus another 6x and plus 36. So altogether, that would be x squared minus 12x plus 36. Okay, so just remembering, it's just a little trick, a binomial squared, I need to remember. Oh, I actually end up doing FOIL. Okay. What do I got next? Yeah. Last thing with multiplication, this is kind of where we peaked, and I can really multiply any size of polynomial. I just get more and more and more terms. With this one, I have a binomial times a trinomial. Well, nothing changes. I do repeated distribution. The first term, the 4x, use the distributive property with that term. 4x cubed plus 12x squared plus 4x. And then I need to repeat that with the second term. Negative 2 gets to distribute to all three terms as well. Minus 2x squared minus 6x minus 2. And then if there was a third term out front, I would distribute that. But really, I just need to look at, am I distributing all of the pieces out front? From here, I can gather my like terms. 4x cubed, that's the only x cubed. Now I gather the x squared. It's 12x squared minus 2x squared. Now the x is plus 4x minus 6x. And finally, your constant of minus 2. So I gathered the like terms, and now I can combine them. 12x squared minus 2x squared, that's just 10x squared. 4x minus 6x, you end up at negative 2x. And you have your constant of negative 2. There you go. Okay, so that is the first half of the unit, right? It was, can I talk about degree? And can I evaluate? And can I classify? Can I add, subtract? Can I multiply in all the various ways? That's kind of the first half of the unit. Then, okay, we're going to jump to a few examples of factoring. And, we just did this part, and we just had a weekly assignment on Friday, and we did a review on Thursday. So hopefully we're pretty comfortable with this. So I'm just going to jump through kind of the basic ideas and go from there. So I'm only doing a few questions again. X squared plus 17x plus 72. All right. That is a trinomial. The first thing I always look for is, can I take out a common factor? No common factor. But luckily, it has an a value of 1, or there's really no coefficient there. So all I need to find is the magic combo. Multiply to the constant of 72, add to the middle of 17. And if I can find that number, I'm going to be a-okay. I'm going to be able to figure it out. Okay, well, that number would be 9 and 8. 9 plus 8 is 17. 9 times 8 is 72. So the factored version, x plus 9, x plus 8. That's it. You've successfully factored it. And really what we remember is, well, that's because, the constant comes from just those numbers multiplied, 72. And the middle one comes from multiplying the x and the 8, and then the x and the 9. It's from your outer and your inner. Yeah, those do combine to 17x. So that's inspection. Okay, that's one of our 4 methods. All right, let's move on. This one over here. 4n squared plus 40n plus 100. Oof, that one's a little bit bigger. Okay, I look at that one and maybe I'm a little, intimidated. But something I notice is I actually have a greatest common factor. And I always look for a GCF. All of those terms are divisible by 4. And you get n squared plus 10n plus 25. So there's my second method of factoring. The first one we looked at is bring out a GCF. And now from there, I actually have something I can factor by inspection on the inside. Multiply to 25, add to 10. Multiply to 25, add to 10. Oh, that's 5 and 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Yep, 5 plus 5 is 10. Perfect. So you'd have your 4, and then your two factors are n plus 5 and, n plus 5. I factored that by inspection, and then I look at that one and I say, well, isn't that kind of similar to something we did above when we were multiplying? Having the same binomial times itself. The more convenient way to write that would just be n plus 5 squared. N plus 5 times n plus 5, that's just n plus 5 squared. So there you go. Fully factored. I did a little bit of inspection and I did a little bit of the GCF. It's great. Okay. Let's move on. Let's find another one to do. Okay, right here, 6x squared plus x minus 7. Look for a GCF. Always look for a GCF. No, I don't have one. Okay. Well, I have this kind of coefficient of 6, so I can't use inspection. I'm going to have to use decomp. So I take the coefficient, the a value, and the constant. 6 times 7 is 42. And it's negative stuff, so negative 42. And I'm adding to that middle. I'm adding to 1. That is my magic combo. A little bit different than inspection when I'm doing decomp. Well, I think those numbers are going to be add to 1. So they're really, really close numbers. I think that would be negative 6 and positive 7. Multiplies the negative 42, adds to 1, absolutely. So I decompose. I break this thing apart. I say that middle term, I know I have to add to x, but maybe I could say it's minus 6x plus 7x. Conveniently decompose it. And then now that I'm dealing with 4 terms, I could factor by grouping, because as soon as I see 4 terms, I know I can factor by grouping. The first group has a common factor of 6x, and you get left with an x minus 1. The second grouping has a common factor of 7 plus 7, and you get left with an x minus 1. Hey, my bracket is a common factor. I can factor out that x minus 1. And I get left with 6x and plus 7. Those are my factors, right? And the best thing about factoring is you can always check your work. If I wanted, I multiply this out, and I'm supposed to get this. I'm supposed to get 6x squared plus x minus 7. Yeah, I might as well do it. Okay, so we could do a kind of an informal check. X minus 1 times 6x plus 7. Well, you would do a little bit of FOIL. 6x squared plus 7x. Perfect. Distribute the negative 1 minus 7. Minus 6x minus 7 equals 6x squared plus an x minus 7. Hey, it worked. Okay, so factoring is just writing this thing back as a product, writing it as a multiplication. And since I know how to multiply, I can always check my answers. So there you go. We've already done GCF, we've already done inspection, and now that's an example of decomp. And now I think there's only one more that I wanted to do, where we're going to do difference of squares. Okay, so x squared minus 25. And what the difference of squares said is if you have a squared minus b squared, so something squared minus another thing squared, has to be a difference, has to be subtraction. That factors to a minus b times a plus b. Okay, so in this case, it's x. Yeah, that's like the thing being squared is x minus 25. That's like 5 squared. 25 is a perfect square. So I don't have to break it up like that, and I don't have to kind of write that out, but I think it's easier for me to say, okay, well then it's x minus 5, x plus 5. The difference of squares, a minus b, a plus b. And there you go. That's the difference of squares. I think that's, it's a kind of a smaller version of factoring. It's only really specific type of things where we see it, but it's really useful to know. Okay, and that's it. Okay, there's more examples of all of these, kind of combining them. I always look for a GCF, and then maybe I'm left with inspection, or then maybe I'm left with decomp, or then maybe a difference of squares, but all of that stuff. So there you go. That is polynomials in a nutshell, summed up fairly quickly, but hopefully that was good to review. So the rest of this would be a great thing to review over the next day before we write that summative assessment tomorrow, and really make sure you get those questions answered before we write that assignment tomorrow. Do some studying, work hard. I know you guys are going to do great. And that is it for this one. And that is it for this one. Just a brief review, kind of touching on the basic ideas, because that's really all you need to know. As long as you have the basics, you can piece everything else together. So this is really important, right? If you have any questions about this unit, if there's anything you're still struggling with, let me know. Ask me a question. Maybe you set up a one-on-one appointment. Maybe you just send me an email. Maybe you submit it in the form. But let me know. Okay, let me know what I can do to help you out so that you are ready to roll for that assignment tomorrow. And yeah, make sure you're ready to roll for that assignment. So for now, you've got the review package, and work through that. The key is already posted, and you can make sure you have everything figured out to do well on the assignment tomorrow. So as always, thanks for watching. Smash the like button, hit subscribe, all of that. And good luck on the assignment tomorrow.